Hey everybody, Aaron here. Welcome back to another manga review. Today we look at a Shonen Jump series that was very popular when it first came out. The anime has had some, I want to say, less positive reactions than the manga of it, because there were times that people really got frustrated with the anime. The manga wasn't, foolproof either. There was times where people got kind of pissed off at the manga as well. But for the most part, it was a long run that people, for the most part, enjoyed. We're looking at Bleach today. Now, Bleach is an old show, an old manga series, excuse me. Besides being a show, I mean, it ended at what I think 300 and like something episodes. I think it was canceled at that point. From what I hear, apparently they are thinking of rebooting it to kind of finish it off for the anime at least. But the manga came out, and this is kind of gonna blow your mind because it's the realization of how old this series really is. The manga came out in 2001, August 20th, and I was 11 years old at that time. Like, that's fucking crazy. I won't even lie, that is so crazy. Now, what's ironic about that is that it ended recently, August 22nd, 2016, which is kind of funny because it's like 2 days after its initial like 15 year of release, which is kind of cool. I give them credit for that. But this was definitely a series that had a lot of highs and lows. It was one of those shows that they are one of those. I keep saying shows because I'm thinking of the anime when I'm talking about this. It's one of those manga though that was like a show in a lot of ways, where it had a lot of times people loving it and also people going, "Yeah, I kind of want it to end already." So to get on with this actual review, let's first talk about the story. Bleach, the manga story was very interesting in the sense that it worked a lot of times. It also had these moments where it really went off of a lot of shonen concepts. I mean, of course, it's obvious it's a shonen jump series in general, but Tite Kubo really, let's say, he took inspiration from a lot of things like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, etc. And he really ran with it because a lot of times Ichigo has the same issues that Goku faces or Luffy or anything else from the series of shonen. In terms of he loses a fight and then kind of is weakened, maybe loses a little morale, but then trains hard, gets a new power, beats the crap out of that guy, rinse and repeat with the next 30 opponents. And at times, hey, listen, it's cool because we get to see, Ichigo pull off some really badass stuff in general. He gets really these kind of cool powers, sometimes a little bit, I want to say his powers are sometimes a little bit too OP, especially when he starts getting like a lot of his backstory where it's like, oh, you find out that he's also part Quincy and part other thing, and his Bankai could transform into this now, and his Bankai could do this now. It sometimes feels a little bit too like, oh, that's gonna work out too well. But I mean, like I said before, this is a shonen series, so you kind of have to expect that. But the story doesn't suffer from that really. I think the story suffers from sometimes them stretching out the story a little too long. A lot of times it feels like a rope, like one of those elastic ropes that you can pull apart. And the thing is that as you pull it, the elastic starts breaking in the middle, and then of course the tension on it becomes too much. It breaks apart, and I feel like Bleach's story in general kind of has that same issue where it falls apart at the wayside occasionally here and there because of weaker elements in terms of them trying to make these stories kind of work too well. But it's never that I was never entertained. A lot of times I felt that some arcs were a little bit weaker than others, but overall, as a giant story and a giant, thing in general, the manga story was actually pretty good for the most part. Now, enjoyment and art, I'm going to talk about those in a second. I want to say one thing though, that like any shonen series, I do miss Bleach already. I kind of miss it to the point that I do wish it would continue on a little bit, but at the same time, like I said earlier, I was kind of glad when it ended, just because it's like, oh my god, this needs to end. It's I guess it's that concept where if you've been dealing with something for so long and you want to keep going with it, and then realize that it's finally gone. It's the realization, oh, I'm actually gonna miss it now that it's gone. That it happens in real life with other things too, but in anime and manga, it's something that you really do realize once it's gone, it really is gone. So I do feel that, but I am kind of glad it's done, to be honest. But anyways, in terms of, let's talk about the art. The art for Bleach was definitely one of the strongest points. All the character designs were really nice. I mean, look at this right here. I used this one because I felt this is one of the coolest pictures of Ichigo in terms of like one of the more older pictures, but it's one of the coolest ones I feel. This is when he's in his like second to last form of his regular, Soul Reaper powers essentially. Now, what I want to say though is that this was one of the highlights of Bleach. It really had some nice art, and unlike the anime, which kind of suffered from having different artists over the course of the whole giant series, the manga for the most part stayed pretty consistent. It had some nuance issues here and there. Once in a while, it did look weak, and then sometimes it looked really good, and then sometimes it looked like in between both of those. But for the most part, it definitely was very strong, and I really loved the character designs. I loved all the fight scenes. I think the fights were really well represented on paper. They looked really good. That's one of the things that I will say was one of the nicer points of the art for Bleach. Now, enjoyment. I will say I really enjoyed Bleach. Like I said before, there are moments where I wish it would have ended, and now there are times where I'm like, I can really go for an extra chapter or two, but then I'm just reminded, like, it's like one of those friends of yours that you've known when you were younger, maybe. And I think this is the best way I can put this. You have a friend that's really cool and all that, but when you mature as a person and they really don't mature, you kind of miss some things about them. But for the most part, it's like, I got to move on because I know that my life needs to go this way and their life needs to go that way. It's almost like that, where you needed to kind of part ways with Bleach. It needed to end, and it ended on a good note. I mean, I'm not going to spoil the ending for you guys and girls, because I think that if you haven't read it yet, which is, I know some people are still reading it or trying to catch up with it now, it really does end on a note that I felt was good. I really liked it. And I almost think you could make another thing out of it, but I really hope he doesn't. I hope he moves on to a different series and works on that, because, I mean, Tite Kubo, he really did an impressive job with Bleach, and I think that he should be commended on how well Bleach was. I mean, it really was mainstream, and I know a lot of people that have read the manga and watched the anime for this and became fans of anime just because of the series. And while, both of them have their issues, ups and downs, etc., they overall were still great things. Now, like I said, I want to wrap this up. My final score is dependent on this. Overall, Bleach has been a phenomenon, like I said before. And the thing with Bleach is that, like any other phenomenon, people will enjoy it and people will be like, what the hell did I just witness? Some people will have issues with it. Some people will not want to believe it's that good or feel like it's overhyped. It's always that concept of stuff like this. And, Bleach was no exception. It's anything like anything else in the shonen world, I think, especially in terms of, manga genres in general. So I will say, if I had to rate this between an A through F, I have to give it a solid B, because overall, Bleach definitely was one of those things that I really enjoyed. I really did. I would love to get the whole series one day, hopefully, but I know that's going to be pretty tough to do. I mean, like I said, come on, 74 volumes is definitely pretty tough to do. I actually don't know off the top of my head if the manga is still coming out in America. I think it is. I'm just not 100% sure. If anyone put in the comments below, tell me, because I did read these on various websites and stuff like that. I did rent a lot of them. Most of them I rented from the libraries and stuff like that when I was younger. But when it became harder to get, because I know Viz Media at one point tanked and had issues with releasing it via mangas and all that. But I don't remember if it's still coming out or if they kind of re-jumped it to come out again. I'm not 100% sure. But, this is one of the series I would like to own the whole thing, because I feel like I really wouldn't mind going through it once more time just to kind of get through the whole story again, just to say I did. But I would say, if you really are looking for a shonen series and you're really kind of on the fence about Bleach, just know it's like any other shonen. If you love shonen stuff, you will love Bleach. You really will. If you hate shonen stuff, you're going to know that you're going to hate this. I'll be honest with you. There's no in between. Bleach has a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. That's why I feel like a B score is really kind of befitting of it. I mean, it's definitely not a C score, because many people might say, oh, well, you sound like you're making it average. No, because overall, there were more good than bad things about this series. And definitely, if you have to think about that, you realize, oh, it's definitely really on the higher end scale of scoring, not on the lower end. So if that makes any sense. I mean, for me, it makes sense. For you, it might not be. But I would say that if you are really on the fence, just read a few chapters of it. I mean, it's like I said, it's been out for a long time. And I'll tell you right now, the beginning chapters of Bleach in general were definitely something that it actually stayed very consistent with the rest of the series, if that makes sense. In the kind of, how do I explain it? It's one of those things that it doesn't change too much, if that's the best way I can put it. It's that you know what to expect once you read the very first volume of the manga. And when you get to the very last one, you'll notice that, hey, it really is like a lot like the first volume, that it hasn't changed up in the ways of how it does things. You have characters talking, you have times where there's only action, you have times where there's a lot of backstory, and that really is all that's in the first volume. So I really would say the first volume will give you a good taste and kind of understanding if you want to like the series or not. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully you enjoy this review. As always, if you do like these manga reviews, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video. You know the whole line. Have a great and blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.